Welcome to Business Women Australia's radio show. I'm Sally Barker. Each week I'll be talking with a leading member of BWA. These inspiring business leaders are very generous in sharing their stories, insights and expertise. Joining me on the show today is Marie Richardson from HLB Manjud. Good morning, Marie.
Good morning, Sally.
Now this is an interesting topic we'll be covering today, financial literacy for women. Now why is this important?
I've traditionally, in my whole career, worked with anyone coming. We haven't had a specific focus on women. But what we've had happen in the last 3 to 5 years is an increasing number of deaths and divorces that we have seen the impact of financial literacy and attitudes to women, where sometimes the man has run everything. The woman signs what she puts in front of her without really asking any questions about what that means to her and their entire environment. Dealt with several widows who, one of them we had to kind of teach them how to do banking of any description, from internet banking passwords and what have you. And that was quite, on top of grief, it's very difficult to be lost and quite sad to watch someone go through that physical and mental and emotional anguish and then have to have this whole intellectual learning curve at the same time. Very difficult proposition.
So what do we need to know? What should we know?
Well, I think the first thing is don't ever leave it up to your partner, and that's not a man-bashing exercise. It should be a collaboration between any partnership, whether it's male, female, what have you. Make the decisions jointly, understand what's going on in the environment, and work towards a day where you may have to be the one making all the decisions. That could come about by Alzheimer's or dementia. It's not all just divorce and death. There's a number of reasons why everybody should be involved in the financial health of the family and well-being.
I know, my bank account I was the secondary. The bank just would not sign as a joint. It had to be the man, had to be the primary holder of the account for the home loan, for everything. And even I had to get authorisation from the man to get any information, because that's the way they just set it up. There was no alternative. Yeah,
it's quite funny. So a lot of the software programs will not accept the female as the primary with the male as the secondary, which is quite parochial in this day and age to think that it doesn't work, particularly where the female is the guiding light, because I spend as much time telling the man who chooses to not know how much money they have in the bank or what have you, that he really needs to take more of an interest and he shouldn't be getting an allowance. So it does work both ways.
It's no secret that the financial literacy of women in this country is quite poor. Our schools don't teach financial literacy. What do we need to do? What can we do to educate ourselves?
One of the projects I've got on my little time horizon going forward is actually going and talking to schools about changing math around in that 6 to 8 age bracket and actually teaching them maths but about money. And I did that quite a number of years ago with my stepson. Explained to him what a finance contract looked like, and we were talking in that particular instance about an Xbox, that he wanted to buy the next one, and he found an ad in the paper that said he could have it for $9.95 a week. So we sat down and did all the maths around how much that Xbox was going to cost, because he went, well, I could buy it from pocket money today. I don't have to wait till I save. And we did all those numbers. Well, he's actually very good financially now in a way that I never dreamed of. Everything he relates back to that conversation when he was 7 about not putting it on the Never Never, not putting it on credit, understanding what it's really going to cost. And it was simple multiplication. $9.95 a week for 5 years was an awful lot of money, 2 or 3 times what the Xbox cost. And of course we had the issue of the obsolescence of whatever you're buying as well. There would have been 4 generations of Xbox out by the time he'd paid the loan off. So he learned quite quickly.
That's one of the problems? We have these short-term goals. We don't see the mid-term or the long-term goals?
Yeah, so very much. We call it buckets. We say there are buckets of water. If you think of it as a bucket and talk about money, as in which bucket are you going to put it into? Is it going to be short-term is it going to be medium or is it long? And long is obviously superannuation, that sort of stuff. Short is your housing and food bills, and your medium term is what are you saving for? So saving to spend or saving to get out of the day-to-day rat race. There's a couple of great games around that we use with children, and particularly with teenagers, to say this is the consequence of your action, getting out of the rat race and choosing. And I've got a number of younger ones who are saying, I don't want to earn $1 million. I don't want to earn that. I want to do something that makes a difference in the community. And I'm hearing that from a lot of the millennials. They're not interested in what the pay packet is going to be, providing they cover their basic necessities, and they can go off and do something that really they enjoy. And I guess that's a function of them watching all of us as baby boomers work too hard to keep them into a place where we never were at that age.
So is that the getting out of the rat race, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki games?
That's one of them, yeah. He's got a game called Cash Flow, which I find quite useful. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says in terms of the property piece, but that game Cash Flow, it's like Monopoly with steroids to a certain extent. It's quite funny. One of the 13-year-olds decided that he wanted to be a janitor, not a doctor, because of the cost prices of the education versus how quickly he could actually
earn money.
Be able to save enough to earn enough to replace his job as a janitor with the lifestyle of surfing and travelling the world, which was quite cool for a 13-year-old to be putting that a prospect in front of a 13-year-old girl to go, I want to go surfing, and if I work as a janitor for 7 years, I can actually do that when I'm 25. So, okay.
So we do have these different stages in our life.
Yeah.
So as women, what are the most important things we need to understand about our financial situation?
Well, I think actually knowing what it is, so a basic asset and liability state of understanding how many assets you have and how many liabilities you have and which one trumps the other. Obviously, we'd like to make sure that the assets are higher than the liabilities. And then understanding your income and expenditure in the same way. So dividing that into categories and saying, these are my fixed expenses. If I have X dollars coming in every week, 2/3 of that is already spent on things that I will need to maintain my lifestyle the where it is. What am I going to do with the other third? And if we go back all the way to Charles Dickens, Micawber, happiness is 20 shillings, incoming 19 and 6 going out. Misery is 19 and 6 coming in and 20 going out. So live on less than you earn and have some really clear goals around putting that. And some of that is what we teach in the banking system of just making sure that you don't see money that is already paid to someone else. You don't actually touch the money that's set aside for your rates or your bills or what have you. And your indulgences can be short or long term. So if you want the holiday in Hawaii, then spending, what's that Bernard Salk query, the smashed avocado breakfast story, spending $20 on avocado breakfast or going to Hawaii 6 months earlier by how you choose to spend money. I'm not telling you which way to go, but understand the consequences of the difference on the way through.
And the consequences of those choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw another article that a comment from someone who said, every time I have smashed avocado for breakfast now, I put $20 more on my mortgage.
Oh.
So I'm paying for it. I'm either happy to do it at home or go out to a restaurant, but the guilt of smashed avocado is such that I pop $20 extra on my mortgage to indulge myself in the short term. So it's got to come from somewhere. So what else do I do? So
that's understanding the money that's coming in, the money that's going out, the money you're going to put away for your indulgences. What are some hidden things in terms of forms we've signed or we're not aware of things we've signed? You know, you did mention before when it comes to either death or divorce. You know, what kind of problems can you find yourself up against in a divorce situation if you've just been signing away willy-nilly and you're not really sure what you've been signing?
Well, I saw an article in the paper yesterday where the female is actually been left with the loan. No assets, just the loan, because the male in that instance actually falsified a tax return 3 years ago when the loans were taken out, and she signed as the guarantor. the divorce happened. They agreed with how it was all going to be settled. The assets were all split and ordered by the court and what have you. And now she's actually been left with liabilities exceeding her assets. She's got money in super, but she can't access it another 20 years. So no concept whatsoever around that. And I had another one where he got to keep all the super and she got all the lifestyle assets, and he ended up still owing her a loan of some description. So it was completely counterbalanced. She had nothing for retirement and a house, and he had no house and a lot of money that he couldn't access for 35 years. That's not right. Is it fair? Is it reasonable? That's the questions we want to ask. And we want them to have informed knowledge of what they're fighting for.
What do we talk when we mention sexually transmitted debt? What are we talking about?
Well, that's the example. So he basically took loans out on the business, ran the business into the ground, and she was left holding the debt.
So you need to educate yourself to avoid these situations.
Absolutely.
Double check, even if it is your partner, double check what you're signing.
Yeah, and understand what you're committing to. And the two were separate. The loan was done years ago. The divorce was handled without the people handling her affairs being completely aware of the total asset and liability picture.
So if someone's listening to this episode now and they're thinking, oh, what do I do? I'm not really sure. I've signed lots of forms over the years. I'm not really sure what I have signed. Can they go back and check what they've signed?
Oh, absolutely. So there's three main advisory roles in life, I think. There's an accountant, there's a lawyer, and there's a financial planner. And none of them can work on their own because of the complexities of the law, not just in this country but elsewhere. So you need legal advice, you need accounting advice, accounting and tax advice, and you need a financial planner. We generally say that the financial planner is the cornerstone, that they become the trusted advisor and they pull other experts in to look at your position and tell you what it is. You know, a lot of that question, I do remember lots and lots of clients over the years saying to us, am I really worth that much? Why do I not feel like I'm wealthy? And it's all about managing their money. You know, we've taught lots of people to save over the years, and I can remember a client from the early 90s. They saved $25,000 over the course of the first year that we were working with them. And I'm doing the review and thinking, oh my God, how are they going to feel? Like, that's $500 more a week that they've saved. They've clearly cut their lifestyle big time because they couldn't make the mortgage the year before. And he really could not tell me what he'd done differently. She said it was a little bit odd the way the banking piece worked in those days, because we were getting her to put her groceries on credit card simply so he could measure what they were spending. I think she spent less because she had to put it on credit. She was a little bit antsy about that was happening. But they couldn't remember or couldn't acknowledge that they weren't going out as often, they weren't doing anything different than what they'd done before, but suddenly this $25,000, and that was a lot of money in the early 90s. Yeah. And they're, you know, very wealthy and very happy now. They could retire any time they like, and they're only in their early 50s. They don't want to because they enjoy what they do and they're happy doing what they're doing, but they've got that choice. And when you've seen medical scares in the family, if something happened, and I've often said that myself, if something happened to me from a medical point of view and I could just drop and run and go do something else, whether it be travel or go spend time with family or friends or what have you, that's what you want. And that's part of the financial literacy, is making sure that you're protected, the insurance end of it, and knowing when to change your strategy, knowing how to do it. So getting those three advisors on board, getting them to look at what you've done over the past, acknowledging where you are now and where it is on the timeline of where you want to be is critically important for women, but for everyone.
Fabulous information. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Women Australia's radio show. Marie Richardson from HLB Manjud, proud station sponsor.
Thank you.